So, welcome to Beauty of Colors podcast. Patience, it's great to have you on the show.
Well, thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
You're very welcome. So, tell the listeners about you and what is your story from homelessness to early retirement?
Well, that story would probably take a couple of days to tell, but I'll tell it in the best, shortest version that I can tell. I'm originally from West Africa, Liberia. Came to the States when I was 10, and I have literally been in business since elementary school. So it kind of started out with one of my friends he wanted to go to this camp, summer camp. And now, mind you, we're 10 years old in the fifth grade, right? And he couldn't afford it. And well, his parents didn't want to pay for it. So, and he was like, well, Patience, I really want to go to this camp. And I was like, well, you pay for it. He was like, well, we're 10. Like, what am I going to do? So I taught him how to sell his school pictures.
Oh,
And then he was able to actually make enough money to go to the camp. So by the time I got to middle school, I was a known business consultant. Like all the little kids would come to me like, hey, Patience, I like to sing. How do I turn this into income? I like to draw. How do I, so this just kind of started from there. But then, of course, once I got older, because I kind of grew up in an abusive household and things, so I moved out pretty early. And that's when I ended up homeless 3 times. Because, and the funny thing is, I knew, I started my first business that I started actually was sewing. So I started out sewing decorative pillows and stuff, and I taught myself how to build websites. And then I started doing that. But it was just it was seasons of me building, but then I would like lose everything and have to start all over again. And so because I had so many different types of businesses, what really helped me narrow it down to the passive income, I think it was because I lost everything so many times. And so every time went to rebuild and go back to the drawing board, it was like, okay, well, how can I build wealth and build it quickly without all the fluff? And then also make sure that my income is passive so I never have to be in this situation again. Right. And so that's when I kind of cut out any of the businesses that were like a lot of hands-on stuff, because I also had an event planning business and I used to do cakes, a lot of stuff because I had so many gifts and talents. And then once I cut that down and I was like, okay, I just want to do only things that build passive income, where once I establish it, it continues to work for me in perpetuity.
mhm.
So that's when that started. I started out doing rental arbitrage with Airbnbs. That was a really quick way to make passive income. I had my first invention, and it was passive income through royalties. And then I've written a couple of books, and it was passive income through books. So that's what actually allowed me after the 11th time of losing everything to be able to rebuild. And so that last time is really when I put together my program that's called Generals Equipped,
Mhm.
where I teach people how to build wealth. Like even if you're coming off of the street, right? If you're in the homeless shelter, you can do this. And it's a private wealth club where I teach people. They start first with 3 trusts. Their family trust is where they're going to hold all their assets. Then there's a business trust, and then there's a nonprofit trust. Because I'm very big on impact over income. Because I feel like if you have the impact, the money comes. It just follows it. And so we start first with their nonprofit trust. And I ask them, well, what is it? What type of impact do you want to have with this nonprofit? Right. And then we take the nonprofit and we start getting grant funding for it, set it up, get the grant funding. And then the strategy is once they start getting their grant funding and then they can pay themselves from their nonprofit, then they would take their salary from their nonprofit and take that and put it into an IUL policy inside of their family trust. And then from that IUL policy, they'll pull that same amount of money back out and start an endowment fund for the nonprofit. So,
Wow.
so doing that every year, what happens is you begin to build up the endowment fund for the nonprofit, and then also we get them qualified for the $10,000 a month Google Ad grant, right, to begin to grow the nonprofit. It's a very simple strategy, but once it's set up, it just kind of works on its own. And then once the nonprofit is having that impact and the grant funding is already set up, and then every year you're putting your salary into the IUL, so it's growing in there, but also growing in the endowment fund.
Mhm.
Now we shift over to the business, and then we start giving business grants, right, and do the same thing again.
Mhm. So,
And
so
yeah,
patients, the endowment fund, is that kind of like a retirement fund or is it?
no, the endowment fund, actually, that's the strategy that universities use to stay open for generations.
Okay.
It's basically a fund where you build the fund. And then, so let's say your annual budget for your nonprofit is, I don't know, $100,000, right? So you want to build your fund to where 4 to 7% of the interest that that fund is making every year is the same or more than your annual budget. Okay. And then what you're going to do is then each year you're only pulling a percentage, you're only pulling maybe 3 to 4% from your endowment fund and using that to perpetually run your nonprofit so you never need grants again.
Mhm.
And then obviously if the endowment fund is probably going to be growing at 7 to 10%, depending on where it's indexed, if it's the NASDAQ or Dow Jones. So as it's growing and you're only pulling out 4%, you're still getting compound interest, right? Because it's still the money's still growing in there. You never actually touch the capital; it continues to grow, and you're sustainably like running off of just the interest. That's the strategy that a lot of universities use. That's why they're able to stay in, business for so long. It's just for generations. I think Harvard University has a 230 either million or $1 billion endowment fund.
Wow.
Um, but yeah, so and I took that strategy and I'm like, well, why aren't people using that for their nonprofits, right? Because that's what's really having the impact, right? It's the nonprofits, and then but you can use it on the nonprofit side. But we usually start with the nonprofit side first, so that way, if somebody's coming in and they have absolutely no money to invest, all we're doing is just looking at what type of impact are you trying to have? Are you trying to, I don't know, start something to help homeless veterans, right? Or whatever it is, we take it and then we start with the grant funding for that first, because that doesn't really require you to have a lot of money up front yourself to start it.
Wow. So patience, what did those experiences, what did they teach you about resilience and kind of rebuilding?
Um, so I'm also a spiritual mentor, so I've learned a lot in that process. And I think one of the main things that people overlook when it comes to success is that it's the heart posture of it, right? It's whatever you want in life. You can run after that thing as hard as you can. No, it doesn't matter how smart you are, how great you are with it. If the purpose of it is not to have impact in someone else's life, to make their life better,
Mhm.
then essentially there's really no point. You can make a lot of money, but what have you done? I think one of the quotes that I say all the time is, if you live this life and you never fulfill the purpose that you were placed in this earth for, you haven't lived, you've only existed.
Mhm.
And so my goal is to help people find whatever that purpose is, you turn it into a nonprofit to fulfill it. And so that's the thing. And I feel like once the focus was on helping other people,
Mhm.
right, fulfill what they're in the earth to do, that's when the shift happens. And it's kind of like the more people you help to do something, your stuff just gets taken care of automatically. Then you don't even really have to worry about you. But I think a lot of times people are so focused on grinding for themselves
Yeah.
instead of focusing on helping somebody else. It's kind of like, well, I don't have time to help them. I'm worried about me. Like I have to take care of me. And it's the me mentality that keeps people in poverty.
Mhm. Wow. So Patience, you said you've written several books. What are your books about, and what inspired you? It's because of you going from homelessness to early retirement. That's what's inspired you to write those books, or is there something greater that did inspire you to write those books?
It was the encounters that I had with God, during the process of my life.
Mhm.
Um, the first book that I wrote was called Dispensations in Time. It was about helping people understand spiritual time and then coming into alignment with it. Because I think everybody understands that whatever we do in this earth, there's a spiritual component to it, or there's a spiritual side of it. And I think if you're out of alignment with that, a lot of things don't work. And so Dispensations in Time is about helping people understand how to be in alignment with what's happening in the supernatural realm, as well as walking out the purpose that you're supposed to be doing in this earth. And that alignment causes everything you need for wealth to just come to you, so you no longer have to run after it.
Mhm.
So that was my first book, Dispensations in Time. The second book is Purpose Navigator, where I literally help people find their purpose. It's like a 90-day guide where they follow it day by day for 90 days. And by the time they get to the 90th day, they would have found their purpose in the earth. And then my third book that I just wrote is the Kingdom Wealth Code,
No.
helping people understand, again, just how to actually activate the laws of the kingdom in the earth so that everything that you need that's already laid up for you is released to you. Because a lot of the times people think that we have to work hard, and
Hmm.
it's really not hard work. If
Hmm.
you find your purpose and begin to fulfill it, everything comes to you. Like you don't have to work hard. The hardest part of it is just finding your purpose. Once you find it, everything else comes into alignment.
Yeah. I watched this guy on YouTube. I think his name is Myron something. Can't remember his last name, but he talked about the principle of kingdom and finding your purpose. And he talked about how Abraham, how he got rich, and how to apply biblical principles in your life to either get to what you want. I don't know if you've heard about him. It's called Myron.
I've never heard of him, but
Last name I can't remember. Okay, but
Mhm.
he's really popular on YouTube.
Yeah.
Okay. So patient, where can the listeners get in touch with you? And what are your socials and where can they get a copy of your books?
They can go to patiencedean.com. because that kind of has the hub of everything that I do there. So if you go to patientzine.com, again, if you're interested in the ministry side of things, you can go to my ministry website from there. You can go to finding out about my private wealth club from there. You can find out more about my hedge fund from there. So it's just, that's kind of like the hub for everything. But my books, if you want to buy the books, they're going to be on my ministry website, but just go to patientzine.com. And then the book is on there. You can just click learn more to see the rest of my books and everything that I do.
Sounds great. So, Patience, looking back, what key decision most shaped your journey to early retirement and lasting wealth? What was that key decision that did that for you?
That's a good one. I think that for me, it was the legacy that I wanted to leave. And it wasn't a legacy of, oh, I want to leave a name for myself, but it was the legacy of just understanding what my purpose was. And I knew that my purpose was to help other people who are kingdom financiers, who are meant to be kingdom financiers, get wealthy so that they can be able to fulfill their purposes in the earth. Because everything in this world costs money. Like if you want to start a nonprofit to feed the homeless, you got to buy the food. Everything costs money. And so, and I knew that there were so many people whose destinies depended on me. And so it was the decision really, it was a love decision because it's like, I have to know and understand that these people and their destinies is more important than me
Mhm.
and more important than any obstacle that I have to go through to help them, right? It's kind of like, I'm sure everybody's heard the story of like, like the mother whose baby got stuck under the truck, right? And she runs to the truck and she lifts up the truck, right? And so she's able to do something that she normally would not have the strength physically to do, but out of love, there's this extra surge of power. And that was what allowed me to be able to forge through everything that I went through. It was, I have to get to where I need to be because I know there's so many destinies that are dependent on me.
Mhm. Wow. So, what would you tell someone who's listening right now about the difference between hustle culture and sustainable success?
So I think the issue with hustle culture is still the idea of you're the one that's making it happen. Now, don't get me wrong, you can't be lazy either. That you do have to actually implement, right, the laws of the kingdom. And so there's still work on your end, but there has to still be a balance of understanding that there's something still greater than you that's helping you make it happen, and you just have to partner with that. But as long as you're in that pride of, oh, I'm making this happen, right? That's the whole idea of the hustle culture. That's why it doesn't work because again, it's still about me. It's still about, I'm trying to be rich so that people can see me, so I can have bling and they can say this about me and me, 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 me. And it's still not focused on purpose and whose life can I impact and whose life can I make better. Because at the end of the day, everybody knows that when somebody told you you have one more day to live,
Mhm.
is it going to matter how much money is in your bank account?
Okay.
Or is it going to be the lives that you're impacted that matter? That's the reason why when people are in their deathbed, what they're thinking about is, okay, how were they with their kids, right? Did they say I love you to their husband or wife? Those are the things, the impact that you have on people. Because the greatest assets we have in the earth is not money, it's relationships, it's people.
Yeah.
It's how you treated them, it's what you poured into them. That's what lasts when all is said and done. And I think that the hustle culture doesn't take that legacy and purpose into account.
Wow. I always say the greatest reward in life is helping somebody else. That's the greatest reward anybody can get in life is
Yep,
helping. Yeah.
it's the greatest reward. It's almost like anything that you want in life, help somebody else do it.
Yeah.
Because the same effort that it takes for you to do it for yourself,
Mhm.
what if you could help 20 other people do it?
It's true.
It's just more worth it. And
Yeah.
then you still get it done for yourself too.
Yeah. It is. Then you
And then
get
you can all celebrate together.
that is so true. Well, Patience, it was nice having you, and thank you for this wonderful conversation that we had. And thank you for being a Beauty of Colors podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having me.